Hello, my name is Robert Foreman, and this is a recording that's part of my exploration of the readings for Christianity week by week. And this is Easter, the fourth Sunday of Easter. And um, my interpretations of the readings are all based on the idea that Christianity is based on or grows out of the mystical experience. And that, of course, is based on this, the whole thing is based on this book, Christianity Reimagined, a mystical approach for doubters and the dubious. And here I want to tell you that today I feel like it's a privilege today because today we get to look at the 23rd Psalm. And speaking of growing out of mystical experiences, the 23rd Psalm it both grows out of mystical experiences, as we will see, but also it can create mystical experiences. I think that to say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," itself has a kind of power to it. It's a way of saying something that we know and love, and we've known and loved for all these years. And so it's not only something that is describing our mystical experience, but also just to say these words can itself offer us or bring about something like a mystical experience, certainly a spiritual sensibility. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters and restoreth my soul. These words are so beloved and so old. When I was a hospital chaplain, I used to say to people, what kind of prayer, would you like a prayer at the end of a conversation? And inevitably they'd say no. And two prayers came up over and over and over again. One, of course, is the Lord's Prayer. Um, and the other one was over and over this one, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. There's something that's so calming about these rhythms, so calming about these sounds. Now, of course, it's these particular sounds are created by whoever translated the King James version, whoever put down the King James version, but whoever it was did it well. This is just gorgeous stuff. Okay. Now, the thing about this, the whole series of thoughts that I've been offering about these writings, and this is true for all the writings, is that one of the things that happened many, many years ago, probably 3,000 years ago or more, let's say 5 or 10,000 years ago, is that people had mystical experiences, but said that they must have been created by an individual, a person like individual. They must have been created by or given by something like an individual, like a man, frankly. And that um, was a way to talk about these mystical experiences. I myself talk about my mystical experiences quite a lot, but I never talk about it in terms of an individual. I don't feel, when I have a mystical experience or a spiritual experience, it's like my chest opens up wide. It's like I feel myself connected. I can sense a spiritual reality between me and the trees over there, between me and the sky. And that's what it is for me. But what it was in, 5,000 years ago or more was that people thought, I'm experiencing the mystical reality that is human-like, like a person. And so you get these notions that God is like a man. God created the universe, and the universe being created was done by an individual, by some sort of divine figure. And here, all of the mystical experiences that we're going to talk about, all of them are given an anthropomorphic image. That is to say, they're given to us, and we are led into them by this person-like figure The Lord is my shepherd. And then you say, and this is what I experienced. So when you think about a spiritual experience, when you think about a mystical experience, I presume that you have had some sort of mystical experience, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to these talks. And what's the most noticeable qualities of it? It seems to me that one of the things is that when one of these things comes on, it's like all of a sudden your anxieties just sort of slip away and you become really peaceful inside. I told the story some time ago of driving a car. This is my first spiritual experience. I was driving a car, and all of a sudden I felt my anxieties, which at the time were huge. I felt my anxieties just going to fall away. And it was just me and the steering wheel and the hood and the road. And it was beautiful. And it was very restful. And it felt like it would go on forever, even though it probably lasted 2, 3 seconds or maybe a minute. I don't know. Okay, and that's the quality of these experiences. And so I think the 23rd Psalm takes these experiences and puts them in this beautiful poetic frame. And one of the pieces of the poetic frame is that they are that I'm being led into them, or they represent, or that they happen because this person like divine figure is what created them or what led me into them. So the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The key of this line, the first line is, I shall not want. And when I think about a spiritual experience, it's like you're just present and there's nothing to be gained. You just are here and you say, I don't want anything. I'm just happy to be where I am. And that's an amazing experience to be, considering, especially considering our craving culture of just always looking for more, 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 or I need more money, I need more love, I need more this, that, or the other thing. But the idea that I can have an experience of no want, the idea that I can be completely content where I am, it's an amazing possibility. And that's what I think comes with the spiritual experience. But the 23rd Psalm says, the Lord, my shepherd, it draws the analogy with the Lord as a shepherd. The shepherd is drawing me along. Because the shepherd is drawing me along, I'm sort of like a sheep and I just don't want anything. And that's the image here. That's the image. But the key here is that when I don't want anything, it's like I'm just here. I'm just quiet and peaceful. So the second line is, He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. The still waters is the line that it's the phrase that gets me here. He leadeth me beside the still waters in a spiritual experience, in a mystical experience. It's as if it's as if everything in me is just quiet and still, and I'm just fully here. I want for nothing. In the experience I call the pure consciousness event, it is absolutely still. There's no thinking in that experience. There's nothing. I'm not aware of any sounds. I'm just fully present. I'm just awake, conscious. And so I am in a place of still waters. And then, of course, but we have this image of the Lord as leading me there. So he maketh me lie down in these near these still, he leadeth me beside the still waters. And green pastures, he leadeth me to lie down in green pastures. What's a green pasture? It feels so full. A green pasture is like it's everything you can want. You're just completely content to be there. If I was a sheep and I had green pastures, it would be like, manna from heaven. It'd be like, what a perfect place to be. I can just eat and eat and eat. I'm as happy as a sheep in a green pasture. And so there's a fullness, and there's a fullness in these mystical experiences too. There's a richness in these mystical experiences. You do feel just completely full and like you're in a lush world. I think about feeling the connection with things. It feels so damn lush. It feels just like having a green pasture. Okay, next line. He restoreth my soul. And we'll stop there for a second. He restoreth my soul. I feel fed in one of these experiences. I'm trying to think of another experience. Oh, when I when I'm off on a meditation retreat, which I go on sometimes, it's like you're so content to be there. I feel so happy to just be there and be allowed to be just fully there. And I feel so restored. It's like in the beginning you go and you have all your grumpiness and you have all your grr, you have all that stuff. And just to be there, it's so restoring. You just feel like, oh, I feel fed again. I feel alive again. I'm just so happy to be there. Okay, next line. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness. Now, if you'll recall, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about feeling upright. And the feeling of upright is I know that what I'm doing is right. I know that like if I stole a box of spaghetti, which is what the story that I told some time ago, I stole a box of spaghetti and then I returned it. And in returning it, you just feel like, huh, you don't have that complicated business inside anymore. You feel like you're just walking the right road. You're not complicated. You don't have internal conflicts. So you're on that path. You're on the path of righteousness. And the connection here is that because I feel still inside, if I want to keep feeling still inside, I need to act right. If I don't act right, that is, if I'm not on the path of righteousness, if I don't act right, I'm not going to feel still inside. I'm going to feel like there's a kind of a quiet inner churning. What they say that there's a still small voice, and that still small voice, the voice of conscience, is what is sort of going along if you've done something wrong. You should fix that. And so there's a sense that if you want to be quiet inside, you have to act in such a way that you don't have that internal conflict that your conscience is going to bug you on. So because your soul is restored, you get led, you are on the path of righteousness. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Long story there. I think I'll probably skip that because the talk how to talk about death is a whole subject in itself. But I will fear no evil. And that's what I was telling you about, that when you're in one of these experiences, you're not afraid. Your anxieties have just settled down. You're not afraid of anything. You're just present. You're just present and wide open, and you have nothing to be afraid of. You have nothing that might come up, and we've talked about, um, yeah, you feel no either evil. Even in the face of death, even in the face of the shadow of death, you will fear no evil. Nothing scares you, even death. Thus, in one of these experiences, you're just without any anxieties. You're just fully there. You're fully present. And then it goes on to this, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. There's a sense here of being protected. Rod and staff are about protection. The rod is something that's designed to, like send the foxes off, send the lions off. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. I feel so safe in one of these experiences. I feel so safe as if there is some great rod and staff that's going to protect me, and I feel like nothing bad's going to befall me. And this is the image here is I'm like a sheep. And here the sense is that I have the shepherd with me. I have the protection. I have that which is safe making, if you will, a rod and staff like that. Okay. Next. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Think about what that's like to have a table prepared before you. I have this image of my mother-in-law many years ago when I first met her. This is before we were married, and I would go into her house, and She would she would get out, she would say, "Are you hungry?" And before I could possibly answer, she would say, "Oh, maybe you'd like some cereal." And so she'd bring out a great big box of cereal, and then she'd say, "Maybe you'd like some, some a sandwich." And so she'd bring out bologna or ham or whatever she had, and she would lay it out, and then she'd get the bread and get some mayonnaise, and I didn't say anything. She was just giving, she would just get this out more and more and more. And by the time she was done, the table was literally filled with food of, just whatever she had in the house. It was just wonderful. And it felt so welcoming. It felt like like, wow, this is just wonderful. And that's what it's like to have one of these spiritual experiences, to just have your heart be full because you're there and because you're unconflicted and you're wide open. This sort of feeling strikes me more and more these days. The feeling of just being fed, just being happy to be there, and that's what this is describing. A table before me. And it's a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, which is to say that even where there's danger, even where there's something awful that could very well happen, your enemy might come at you with a, spear. And even in the face of that, you still feel full. You still feel safe. You still feel like you're being fed. Thou preparest the table before me with all the food that can be eaten in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. That's just an old image for being blessed. My cup runneth over. And that's, again, think about the image of having someone offer you something and here, would you like this to drink? And here, have some more, have some more, have some more until the damn thing runs over. It's just a feeling. It's just communicating a feeling of safety, a feeling of being fed, a feeling of it's really okay. It's really okay to be me here. And that's what this is describing. Thou preparest a table before me, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy, it's really describing what is described above. This is so good, and it feels so merciful and loving. And goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. When you're in one of these moments, when you're in one of these spiritual moments, one of the interesting things about it is it has the quality of it'll never end. It'll just feel this way forever. And maybe it will. Maybe it'll last forever. Sometimes they do. Generally, they don't, but you feel like they will. You feel like it'll last all the days of your life. And that's just wonderful. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in this. Now, this says, I'll dwell in the house of the Lord, which I think is, that's the image here, that there's a Lord and he has a house and whatnot. So that's not what's going on here for us. But I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The feeling is, I will live in this heaven on earth, if you will. I will live in this place of joy. I will live in this place of non-anxiety. I will live with this sense of presence forever. So I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So that's what I say. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful image. Now, this reading for today actually does a couple of things that I think are pretty interesting. And here the readings take this image, this ancient image of the shepherd, the good shepherd is going to watch over me. And the later writers, especially Peter, says, you have returned to the shepherd, the guardian of your soul. In other words, the sense that God is watching over us, they take that notion of God as anthropomorphic and they say, you see, that's Jesus. Now, Jesus comes, what, 1,000 years later than this poem was written? But when Jesus comes, it's easy to take that imagery, the image of the shepherd, and apply it to him. You see, he's the shepherd. It's just a very easy leap to make. And I think that's what they do. You have returned to the shepherd. He's the guardian of your soul. So that they take this old image and they say, you see, that's Jesus, which is sweet. And then John, anyone who does enter the sheepfold, the gate, and they have Jesus. John has Jesus saying, "I am the gate for the sheep. I'm the protector of the sheep. I'm the shepherd." And again, it's an easy leap to make, and that's what we see here. So it's once you have the notion that God is like a person, when you have a person that they say is like God, then it's easier to say He's the shepherd. But in my experience, in our experience, the sense of being safe, it doesn't require that there's a particular person that does it. It doesn't require that there's some Jesus around there that's making you safe, rather that there's something about the experience of being fully present, something about the experience of being wide open, being deeply present that feels like you're safe. And so it's not that Jesus is making you safe, or it's not that the divine figure, God, is making you safe, but rather that's built into the reality of these experiences. I feel safe in these experiences. It might not make for equally good poetry. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, is certainly more beautiful than saying, I feel like I have no want. I feel like I'm not anxious. I mean, I suppose if I was a better poet, I could come up with something, but that's the poetry that they've come up with. And so I think the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want is their way of saying that these spiritual experiences are experiences of the lack of want, the feeling of safety, the feeling that they'll go on forever and then I'll be safe forever. And it's a beautiful image. And that's what we have here. So I think the 23rd Psalm is really a beautiful example of the spiritual life sort of coming out. David Steindl-Rast, I point out, says that religion starts in the mystical, and that because they start in the mystical, the doctrines that come up start in the mystical, and the doctrines themselves come to seem doctrinaire, that they're not as alive as the beginning. But whoever wrote this poem, whoever wrote this psalm, understood or felt the spiritual reality and was able to say it in their way, able to say in such a beautiful way. And so I think that the 23rd Psalm is a good example of the nature of mysticism coming out through this particular model. And I think that's enough for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.